US President Barack Obama welcomed in the new year by signing into law a tough new set of sanctions for Iran. Anyone doing business with Tehran's central bank will now face punishment, thanks to the new measures directly targeting the financial sector. The move comes at a time of heightened tension over Iran's nuclear program, and the threat of sanctions has already seen Tehran threaten to block off that key oil export route in response. Adding to the situation is Iran's plan to test long-range missiles during naval drills in the Gulf. That led to US warships being sent to the area. Let's get an update on this and talk now to the director of the Beirut-based Center for Middle East Studies, Dr. Hisham Jebber. Dr. Jebber, thanks for being on the program. Nice to see you tonight. Relations between Washington and Tehran have been heating up over the past few weeks, as we've been reporting almost on a daily basis. The US has even sent warships on maneuvers now. What are the chances, do you think, of a full-blown military conflict?
First of all, we have to say that the tension between Iran and the United States has been, happened for a long time, for decades, and especially in the last 2 weeks, of course, when Iran started the maneuver, the biggest one in the Gulf, what they call it Wilayat 90. The Americans considered this as a threat that Iran will close the Strait of Hormuz. Iran denied this, and many observers believe who threatened whom, who came from the United States with the intensive battleship than U.S., for example, has 3 USS aircraft carriers in the area, like USS Abraham Lincoln and USS Stennis and USS Carl Mincer. You are talking about hundred of fighters, and aircraft and battleship. And Iran said that it's right to be in that water, and Iran did threaten that it will close maybe Strait of Hormuz. In my opinion, Iran will not close the Strait of Hormuz unless if we are talking about sanctions. Iran is under sanctions every day, and today we heard that Mr. Obama made a new sanction on who dealing with the Central Bank of Iran. Okay, everything is accepted in my opinion in Iran, but if America and its allies would forbid Iran to export its oil, in Iran's opinion, it's a red line. And it's not a sanction only against Iran, it's a sanction against the clients of the Iranian oil, like China, like Japan, like many countries in the world. But you ask me about the possibility of conflict. Okay, go ahead.
Hello everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today is Wednesday, January 4th, 2012, and I'm Darko. My website is ggnonline.com, and on YouTube it's ddarko2012. Alright, so the big story of the day is U.S. deploys troops in Israel for Iran war. There's been exercises going on all sides. Iran is the latest exercise, but Israel was actually carrying out their own exercises prior to that. Says the U.S. military is preparing a massive military campaign against Iran, sending thousands of American troops, warships, and weaponry to Israel. Says an unnamed source said the military deployment of U.S. anti-missile ships and accompanying support personnel will occur in January and later this spring. Global Research reported. Commander of the U.S. 3rd Air Force base in Germany, Lieutenant General Frank Gorenk, said it is not just an exercise but a deployment. The Jerusalem Post said. Says here, Washington and Tel Aviv have planned to hold what they call the largest ever joint military exercise this spring, and the U.S. commander visited Israel 2 weeks ago to confirm details for the, quote, deployment of several thousands of American soldiers to Israel. And finishing up, while U.S. troops will be stationed in Israel for an unspecified amount of time, Israeli military personnel will be added to United States European Command, or EUCOM, in Germany. So kind of a big deal. The Iron Dome system, talking about a anti-missile outpost. That's what they were doing the exercises with before. Okay, so then we have Iran warns U.S. to keep ship out of the Gulf. So what does the United States do? Well, the Pentagon saying U.S. Navy will remain in the Persian Gulf. And he said it is intended to maintain what he called a, quote, constant state of high vigilance. And it's always in the name of what? Commerce, in order to ensure the flow of sea commerce. Just like what? In the Gulf of Aden with Somalia. And if it's not that excuse, then it's always the terrorist card, the terrorism card. All right, next up we have NATO forces to attend drill in Israel. Organizations, search and rescue units, emergency services to take part for the first time in the home front command drills simulating massive earthquake. Ooh, a HARP weaponized earthquake. Weather weapons. Oh, that's very interesting. And that's usually how everything will kick off. When the ST whatever HF, you know what I'm talking about, it's going to be multiple things. It's going to be HARP-induced earthquakes, floods, and then comes the pandemics, and then the economy, and then the food riots. So, and I'm not scaring you. I'm just saying that that's how it'll play out. It won't just be one thing, because I keep reading about preppers preparing for a certain case scenario, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be one particular thing. It's going to be a multitude of things, and that's of course by design to keep your head spinning, order out of chaos. So the White House says Iran's threats are bid to distract from problems. It's basically saying Tehran was increasingly isolated internationally and faced economic problems from sanctions and wants to divert attention from its deepening problems. It reflects the fact that Iran is in a position of weakness, White House spokesman said. And like I said before, I didn't say it, I titled it in my last video, what? Iran is looking like a cornered prey. They're being hunted, is what's happening here. So we all know that Rothschild's EU agrees to embargo on Iranian crude, and that's no big surprise talking about sanctions. But look at this. Look at how isolated Iran really is. South Korea disregards U.S. oil sanctions, basically telling them to go to the devil. They're not going to comply. China rejects U.S.-led sanctions on Iran, voiced strong opposition to the U.S.-led push for unilateral sanctions against Iran over its nuclear program. And as we get closer and closer to strategic strikes and assassinations of top Iranian leaders, we have from ex-CIA spy, U.S. must exploit new split in Iran's Revolutionary Guard. I remember reporting on this explosion at the Guard's base west of Tehran on November 12th, which I thought was not a provocateur, but basically sabotage. It says many Guard members, including commanders and even officers at the Supreme Leader's office, have been arrested and under investigation. The thing you have to remember, just like in Libya, is why do these soldiers, these people in the military, defect so fast, so easily? And the answer is because they know that they're on the outs, just like Libya. And when that happens, you want to be part of the new regime, so that you can, get the medals and you can get, whatever it is they're going to get. Their nice limousines and stuff like that. So, with Iran, it may seem scary, but honestly, I think Iran is not going to be that big of a deal if they do have a conflict. I honestly think the U.S., with all their technology in the West, it's going to be game over as soon as it starts. I mean, you saw that little drone machine gun on that ship. That's pretty sophisticated stuff there. I mean, I reported on that 2 years ago about drone machine guns on beaches. I mean, that was some really, really scary stuff. I mean, so moving on here. And I mentioned weather weapons earlier, but let's not forget about the first Iraqi war, where a bunch of Iraqi soldiers, including one of the officers, just came out. They all started fighting each other, and they just came out, hands up, ready to surrender. I'm talking about psychotronic weapons, so all kinds of little tools in New World Order's arsenal. Iran closes border with Pakistan over military arrest. And we have an Israeli spy drone detected in Turkey. Turkish media have reported an Israeli spy drone has been flying over a military zone in the southern province of Hatay in September. Next up, Israel can cease to exist if Iran attacks, as a former CIA analysis say it would be the biggest mistake of the century. Next up, Rick Santorum, there is no Palestine. So Israel will cease to exist if Iran is attacked. And then Rick Santorum says there is no Palestine. So, hey, maybe you could figure it out. Spend the night with Mitt Romney for just $1. I think not. You couldn't pay me $1 million to spend the day with Mitt Romney. It says here 1,800 U.S. military deaths in Afghan war since Obama became president. And God only knows the amount of civilians that were murdered as a result of that invasion of Afghanistan. But all said and done, enter the year of the Taliban, no matter what the Chinese may say about the 2012 being the year of the dragon, this is going to be the year of the Taliban so far as the United States is concerned. It says here, the year began with an exciting media leak by senior U.S. officials in Washington that the Obama regime was considering to transfer to Afghan custody a senior Taliban official. So now after all that, now they have their own base and they're letting them go. And just to put it out there, I don't even think we should have been there. I'm just showing you that it was in vain. So there you go. China wants to set up bases, and just remember, like I said before, Taliban, they're just used. They're used by the CIA. They used them to bring down Russia before, and they used them again. China wants to set up bases in Pakistan, reveals intelligence report. And we know what this is for, right? China's deepening strategic penetration of Pakistan and joint plans to set up oil pipelines, rail, roads, as well as naval and military bases are a matter of concern. Then we have China-U.S. arms race takes to the sea, talking about ballistic missiles. I think China's actually trying to set up a naval base in India as well. China oil, ethnic cleansing in the Horn of Africa. It says Chinese oil workers once again seem to be at the center of a nasty counterinsurgency in the Horn of Africa in the Ogaden, located in the south of Ethiopia. It says it's the home to what is reported to be the major deposits of gas and oil, thought as in the South Sudan. Just how much is actually there is still guesswork. In the 60s, Western oil companies started finding lots of natural gas and maybe even oil in the region. Then came the various wars, and then the U.S. invasion of Somalia in 92, and all the murder and mayhem this little war unleashed amongst the Somali people. So the Western big oil mafia has stayed away. Goes on and says China's been developing Sudanese oil fields in the region and an oil pipeline to Port Sudan. Remember, Sudan is heating up as well. It says here that thereafter the Chinese began taking a hard look at next door Ethiopia, an enormous potential for the gas and oil deposit. I remember this article, new American ally in Somalia, the butcher warlord. That's right. So we know that certain alphabet soup intelligence agencies have been over in Somalia training the transitional government forces along with African Union soldiers, but they're also relying on proxy armies, just like the Taliban. Somalia denies CIA rendition base in Mogadishu. Somalia has dismissed reports that the U.S. runs an underground detention center where the CIA helps interrogate terror suspects in the capital Mogadishu. This is from September 9th. Don't forget about the CIA drone bases in Ethiopia as well. So check this little connection that I made, guys. Residents of South Sudan Flashpoint town in need of aid after an attack, says UN official. So there was a showdown between the South Sudanese military, probably protecting Western interests or Chinese interests, basically for the oil fields, and thousands of armed tribesmen who probably won't see any of that oil revenue, and they basically had a little standoff. Now look at this. I covered this before. Sudan MPs blame the UN. It says here that the South Sudanese MPs from the Merle community have blamed the army and the UN peacekeepers for allowing armed men from the ethnic group to attack Pibor town on Saturday. Now here's the shuffle. Here's the rub. Are you ready? So now they want aid for this, for the failure. They're going to get paid for failing. And then what happens? Well, let's see. 2/3 of U.S. foreign aid is really military aid. So they want to give these soldiers, which are basically mercenaries that are protecting the oil and all that, the resource interest, they want to give them aid, military aid. So they'll put out all the starving people, but it's actually going to the military. North Korea power seen moving from military to the Communist Party. No offense, but man, these guys, they just look so unbalanced and unhealthy, man. Just, wow. But they look like the type of people that would do something like this. North Korea and hell on earth purges gulags for unconvincing morning loom. And Pyongyang, which is basically holds the top 5% wealthiest in North Korea, may idolize Kim Jong-un with a typical party-centric communist system. So they're actually going to be pro-West. North Korea scolds Japan, hardening stance against foes. And they actually refer to Tokyo as the laughing stock of the world. Syrians rally in support of Assad government, and the U.S. plans buffer zone along Syrian border right here with Lebanon in order to step up pressure so they can get their desired regime change. And then we have, and a Swedish professor is under fire for insinuating that Israeli had a tie to the Breivik attack in Norway. Check this one out. Norway killer Breivik is not psychotic, says experts. No, he's just a mind-controlled patsy. So the constitutional lawyer Obama says he doesn't even need the Defense Authorization Act to indefinitely detain Americans. He said it affirms the executive branch's authority to detain people covered in the 2001 authorization for the use of military force.